Senator Richard.
Thank you for being here today. Senator Linehan mentioned it's the Health Science Center, more connectivity on campus, and then the baseball and softball complex. Can you break down out of the $60 million, what would be invested towards?
I can. We have modeled that $14 million of the $60 million bill would go to the Warner Center for Health Sciences. This would be to fund the technology and laboratories and such within that facility. We have indicated that $20.9 million would go for the connectivity, for the transportation, the beautification of campus, mainly for the street work and layout of them. And then $25.1 million for the baseball and softball complexes.
Thank you.
Senator Armendariz.
Thanks for being here. Can you go into some detail on how that baseball softball complex will generate some more economic development in the city?
We can. The College World Series is our key advocate and partnership in that process, which alone brings in about $90 million of economic impact in a given year. We're very proud to be the host institution year after year. We are 12 or 13 years, my colleague in just a minute can confirm that, into a 25-year contract with College World Series. It has needs in the partnership that we offer, and that will be spelled out in just a minute, particularly in this practice field. College World Series and Creighton University together generate other kinds of national programs that come in and through Omaha on an annual basis, particularly with little kids and youth to be participating in different baseball and softball related activities.
Yeah, just let everybody know that my son was a select baseball player growing up. So I know very well these small, these younger kids in the tournaments are quite massive, probably way more kids coming in from states than even the College World Series teams. There are many teams across the span of 2 to 3 weeks alone, let alone all kinds of tournaments then throughout the summer as well that these fields can be used for. Is that right?
That's correct. And Senator, I'm forgetting the name of one of the programs. It's Sluggers something, but it's that alone is $25 million in economic impact for the state of Nebraska. And we would be a partner in that program as well.
I appreciate that.
Senator Dorn.
Thank you, Senator Clemens. Thank you for being here. In the fiscal note, it says to receive grant funds, the application must provide proof that the health science workforce facility is 75% complete. So where are you at in that project now, or when do you expect to be 75% complete? And part of the reason I ask is because this is a funding expenditure in this current budget year. And
We're right on track in that process. So we plan to open the facility in August of 2023. So a 75% completion rate would be about the time of budgetary cycle in the end of June.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Are there other proponents for LB 444?
Good afternoon, Chairperson Clements and Appropriations Committee members. My name is Jack Deasing. That's JACKDIESING. I'm Chairman and President of the Board of College World Series of Omaha, Inc., and I've been in that position for 34 years. I know I don't look that old, but I know. I'm here today on behalf of College World Series of Omaha, Inc. and Creighton University to testify in support of Legislative Bill 444, and in particular, the appropriation to allow for the new baseball athletic complex. It's this portion of the legislation that directly impacts the experience of the top college baseball athletes from across the nation and the city of Omaha, Nebraska. As you probably know, Omaha, Nebraska has been the home of the College World Series, also known as the Road to Omaha, the greatest show on dirt, for over 72 years. It's a very unique relationship with the NCAA, and it's the only NCAA championship that's had any relationship even close to that long. Key reason that the relationship's been that successful is due to the proactive approach Omaha stakeholders have taken to ensure that the fan and student athlete experience is one of a kind. Over 14 days of the College World Series annually It brings in nearly $64 million in media, public relations, and marketing value to the state of Nebraska, in addition to Omaha and the surrounding communities. In 2022, total attendance was 336,105. 59% of attendees are from outside Nebraska, utilizing hotel, restaurant, retail services, and visiting local amenities like our top 3 nationally ranked Henry Dooley Zoo. 13% of attendees who are from Nebraska live outside Omaha. 1 out of every 4 season ticket holders are not from Nebraska. Creighton University, as Father says, serves as the host institution and has done that for the length of the series. It is important that the university is able to provide an excellent practice facility for the College World Series participating athletes. Each year we receive feedback from the teams, and one of the leading feedbacks of late emphasized the importance of having practice fields as close as possible to the hotels and the ballpark. This new facility would be blocks away from the Charles Schwab field and provide amenities commensurate with the needs of our CWS players. It also provides a new experience for alumni and friends who travel to support their college team by having them within walking distance of the tailgating and Fan Fest District events. As the College World Series Bowling president, this legislation is an opportunity for the state of Nebraska to invest in the College World Series. The economic impact of the city and state is significant, as Father mentioned, with an overall annual impact of $88.3 million as of a couple of years ago. It creates the equivalent of 1,103 full-time jobs, and additionally creates annual wages and salaries of approximately $29 million and annual tax collections of about $8.7 million. It brings several other benefits in addition to the games, as you mentioned, Senator. During the CWS, Omaha hosts youth baseball tournaments, which would not be in Omaha if it weren't for the College World Series. The Omaha Slump Buster Tournament hosts players from 40 states for the opportunity to play unique competition and sharpen their skills for the summer campaign. They spend over 36,000 hotel stays across 42 area hotels. The Battle of Omaha is another tournament, ages 10 to 14, occupies over 5,200 hotel stays across 34 area hotels. Local and regional attractions that receive visits include the Old Market, Omaha Zoo, Capitol District, Jocelyn Art Museum, Boys Town Campus, Durham Western Heritage Museum, Strategic Air Command and Aerospace Museum, to name a few. In addition, these teams play their majority of their games on fields throughout eastern Nebraska. So in summary, College World Series of Bowling, Creighton, the Metropolitan Entertainment Convention, Metropolitan Entertainment and Convention Authority in the city of Omaha do host the premier college baseball event in the nation and the NCAA's second most successful championship. While it's under contract, as Father indicated, to be in Nebraska through 2036, I learned a long time ago, you never take anything for granted. To continue as a host of the College World Series past that time will require continued proactive approaches to enhancing both fan and student experiences. Certainly continuing to have a state-of-the-art competition ballpark is a vital key strategic element to provide the appropriate experiences for the participants, but having a top-line practice facility near Charles Schwab Field is also a very important, vital, and key strategic element. Thank you very much for your consideration, and hopefully your approval of this bill is a key part in maintaining Omaha's and Nebraska's position as the home of the College World Series and the greatest show on dirt.
All right. No other questions from the committee? Senator Erdman?
Thank you, Senator Clemens. Thank you for coming today. So I have a question about the baseball complex. So the health service workforce development facility is now being constructed, correct? Okay. And so then the baseball complex you have not started building that yet?
No.
Okay. All right. So if we don't fund this, the baseball facility will get built?
I would say that it's very important for the baseball facility to proceed forward as they have funding from the state. The goal is to have something in place by 2025.
Okay.
And it takes a while to get everything taken care of, but we're already receiving feedback from the teams of not having a practice field. is the wrong check mark on the ballot sheet, especially since in the Southeastern Conference at their tournament, they have 2 practice fields right next to their stadium.
Okay, so maybe that didn't answer my question. Let me ask it again. If we do not fund this, they won't build the baseball complex.
That's probably a question for.
Okay, all right, I'll ask somebody else. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Deasy. Are there other proponents for LB 444? Welcome.
Hi. Good afternoon, Chairman Clements and the rest of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Clay Vanderheiden, ClayVanderheiden. And I'm here today to support LB 444. I'd like to thank Senator Linehan for introducing the bill. I was born and raised in Orion, Illinois, and was considering many colleges to attend while I was in high school. And I ended up ultimately enrolling in Creighton in 2014. My plan at the time was to come to Creighton, try to play baseball, and then eventually find my way back to Illinois, probably Chicago or somewhere where I could find a job. Well, I'm here today because that plan didn't quite go as planned. I injured my throwing arm when I was at the end of my high school life, and quickly realized that baseball was not going to be my future. I was already focused on academics, but that became more of a focus. Especially, I majored in financial analysis and business intelligence and analytics at Creighton. I also, to try to find a way to continue my passion for baseball, ended up being a student manager for the baseball team for all 4 years I was on campus. My career path started in 2015 when, with the help of the Creighton Business School and their Career Center, I landed an internship in downtown Omaha at Berkshire Home State. And then the Career Center helped me again, landing a second internship. And then ultimately, I was kind of placed as a financial analyst intern with Green Slate Development in the fall of 2017. Green Slate's a mixed-use commercial residential real estate developer in Omaha. After my successful internship, I was offered a full-time job out of college, and am now proud to have become a partner and owner in the firm as of 2020. My responsibilities there kind of are overseeing a diverse portfolio of real estate development projects, handling underwriting, acquisitions, financing, and other strategic planning. Ultimately, my decision to attend Creighton University led me to this great opportunity I have now, and I'm proud to call Nebraska home. I've lived here for 9 years, and I can kind of officially say I'm one of these transplants that isn't going anywhere. I also have 2 of my best friends that while I was at Creighton, one of them's from Denver and one's from Northern California. Both recently married, started families here in Omaha, and I can say with good confidence that Creighton's the reason they decided to come to Omaha and kind of end up making it home. The proposed investments in LB 444 are critical improvements and investments for Creighton, and I urge the committee to support the bill, and happy to answer any questions.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there additional proponents for LB 444? Welcome.
Hello, Chairperson Clements and members of the committee. My name is Erica Boyle, ERICA BOYLE, and I am here as a 2017 graduate of Creighton University. I am originally from Hooper, Nebraska, and today I live outside of Scribner, Nebraska with my husband and our 18-month-old daughter. I currently work for AmerisourceBergen as a user experience strategist focusing on future technological innovations for a global pharmaceutical sourcing and distribution services company. I'm here today to personally testify in support of LB 444 as legislation that impacts the university that gave me my start to my career. After graduating from Logan View High School, I chose after one visit to campus to attend Creighton University to earn a business degree. I was struck by how at home I felt walking down the campus mall and was blown away with the successful job placement statistics the school shared with me. I double majored in marketing and business intelligence and analytics through the Hyder College of Business, and I loved my college experience. The Creighton community is one that is warm and inviting. I felt at home on the campus because of how similar it felt to the small Nebraskan town that I am from. It is easy to see a friend walking to class any day of the week. Faculty encourage you to bring real-world ideas and problem solving to the classroom, as well as purposefully engage in the community in and around Omaha and throughout the region through service to others. My success in the classroom has brought me success in my career. I would not have gotten my first job at Quantum Workplace without my Creighton degree. Creighton is where I discovered more about myself and more about the world beyond where I grew up. My classmates came from all over the United States, including Minnesota, Iowa, Kansas, and Colorado. My friends also spanned across all the colleges at Creighton University, and they stayed in Nebraska following graduation due to internships that led to jobs in business, criminal defense, and journalism, or continue to a wide variety of professional school programs. We may be all doing different things now, but the unifying reason we all now call Nebraska home is Creighton University. LB 444 proposes a number of capital projects, including equipment to support the future healthcare workforce of Nebraska, the construction of facilities for baseball and softball, and street beautification. The common denominator of these projects is they all help to ensure that Creighton continues to have world-class facilities and campus life that will ensure this pipeline of out-of-state talent to continue to flow into our state. While I grew up in our state and chose to stay here to pursue my career and raise my family, I know that if Nebraska is to grow and prosper, we must continue to bring in new business leaders, nurses, physicians, therapists, dentists, pharmacists, teachers, and lawyers to our state. These people will continue to come here because of Creighton University. Thank you for your consideration of support for LB 444 so that we can continue to welcome new generations of talented residents to Creighton University and the state of Nebraska. I will now respond to any questions.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for coming. Thank you for your testimony. Are there additional proponents for LB 444?
She did not mention pilots. I am offended.
Seeing none, is there anyone in the opposition? Seeing none, is anyone wanting to testify in the neutral capacity? Seeing none, welcome to close. Senator Linehan.
Thank you all for listening to this. I'll be real quick here. I remember, and many of you may remember, he's still with us, I shouldn't say like he's gone, John Gottschalk. I was in his office at the World Herald, and he took me to a window on the north side, and he said, we're going to put a baseball stadium there. I thought, you're crazy, but it's there. Omaha has been blessed over the years with great leadership, civic leadership. Gottschalk, who's retired now, can't do that role anymore, but there's also other people, Walter Scott, Chuck Durham. There were a lot of people that did a lot for Omaha that aren't with us anymore. And now we have a lot of foundations. It's just a different world than it was 20 years ago. But I have friends from all over the country. A friend of mine, John Bass, who's like the top Foreign Service officer at the State Department today. I always try to get him to Nebraska. He never had time. But this summer, he and his wife came and spent 4 days because we had College World Series. It's a big deal. So thank you very much, and I really
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Senator. I have no positions. Oh, I do have, excuse me. Clerk. We do have online comments. We have 2 proponents, 1 opponent, 1 neutral regarding LB 444. And that will conclude the hearing for LB 444. We will switch now to agency 72, Department of Economic Development. Just a minute, Director.
Yes, sir.
Get our other notebook out. All right, welcome, Director.
It's an honor to be here.
Open the hearing for Agency 72.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairperson Clements and the members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, my name is Anthony Goins, and that is spelled ANTHONYGOINS, and I am the Director of the Nebraska Department of Economic Development. I appear before you today in support of the department's 2023 through 2025 biennial budget as contained in the governor's recommendation. The department works with several programs to encourage economic development, which are vital to the state's goals of growing the workforce, creating the best state in America for technology, meeting the housing demand, and encouraging entrepreneurship and developing communities. On February the 7th, Governor Pillen announced the inclusion of an annual $5 million competitive grant program within his budget to encourage and facilitate mentorships within Nebraska schools. A shortage of skilled labor is the main obstacle that is preventing economic growth in our state right now. Mentoring programs address the issue in two ways. First, they equip students with academic and life skills that position them for workplace success. Second, mentorships cultivate relationships that strengthen the student's sense of belonging, increasing the likelihood that they will remain connected to their community throughout their education and upon graduation. Program guidelines would need to be written for this new grant program to reach these younger students and achieve Governor Pillen's vision. The governor's budget recommendation also includes $10 million in the general fund appropriation for both fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 to continue the marketing efforts of the Good Life is Calling campaign. The 2022 campaign far surpassed key success measurements and leading indicators. Consumers who experience the messaging report, they think of Nebraska more favorably and show a higher intent to move here. There's still more work to fully complete the goals of this campaign. The funding would expand the media footprint to key primary and secondary markets within 500 miles to build a retention strategy centered around our many colleges and universities and revamp our digital tools and leverage our national network of Nebraskans who organically champion the state of Nebraska. DED appreciates the committee's intent regarding an increase in the cash fund aid spending authority in the current year for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the Site and Building Development Fund programs. However, we're still in the process of determining the best use of these funds and anticipate the mid-biennial adjustment request if additional appropriation is needed. The department continues to distribute the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds, resulting from the 2022 legislation. On a daily basis, awards are being made, contracts are being signed, and payments are being generated. As most of you are aware, DED experienced an increase of over $700 million in our base appropriation, which included ARPA funding as well as other general funds that were added to the existing DED programs. DED has distributed $51.9 million in ARPA aid, and the dollars awarded been $259 million. And I think that number to date is about $281 million. The department requests reappropriation of $20 million for the intern Nebraska program, which became effective with LB 1011 back in 2022. A contract is yet to be signed, but work is continuing to develop this program. It is going to be challenging for DED's work to be completed and funds spent by June of 30th of 2023. I want to note that we are very close to signing a contract and committing those funds to a local nonprofit organization to manage the internship program. I wish to thank both the governor and the Appropriations Committee for supporting the department's mission for growing the state of Nebraska. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Senator Wishart?
Thank you, Director, for being here. Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
I'm going to break usually I don't just make comments on the record, but I'm going to make an exception. Director, I am so impressed with your department. You are a small but mighty department.
Thank you.
And the work that you've done, not just with these ARPA funds and the significant amount of dollars that we have entrusted with your department to get out, but it dated back before that to even the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
And the incredible work your team did to support small businesses through that very challenging period of time. So I just want to thank you and thank your team for the work that you're doing.
Thank
very
you.
impressive.
Thank you, Senator Whistle. And it is definitely a team effort. You look on this front row, these are the teammates that tirelessly work literally 24/7 to make sure that happens. So it's my team.
Other questions from the committee? I had a question. The good life is calling almost sounds like a tourism slogan. How would you compare that to tourism?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to answer that question. So the Good Life is Calling was led by arch rival. It shares the true value proposition of living in the state of Nebraska, doing business in Nebraska, and really articulating the life that you can have here. In contrast to the tourism slogan, which is Nebraska's not for you, there are stark differences. When you look at the leading indicator numbers in terms of the clicks on our website. And let me also note that even though this was a one-time campaign, and any of you that run firms, you understand that marketing is a consistent piece of your business model that helps you to attract revenue as well as create profitability. There were 5 families that moved to Nebraska from one campaign. And what I am confident in is that we've allowed other states to tell our narrative because we've never had a marketing campaign other than a tourism campaign. And I think this gives the state of Nebraska the opportunity to talk about all the great things that we already know. Even if we retain every student that graduated from the university system, we would not have enough people for our workforce. So the retention as well as the acquisition strategy underpinned by marketing is mission critical to filling our jobs.
In your remarks, I thought I heard you say there was a college focus to this program. Is that true? Or
that is true. Absolutely. So the college focus really centers around internships. There's $20 million set aside for internships. And as a part of the internship strategy, there will be a marketing component to that internship strategy so that you are attracting student interns from out of state also. That is correct.
Senator Vargas?
Do you have more questions?
I will, but go ahead.
Comment-wise, I appreciate the transparency on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the site development building fund in terms of obligated funds. That's helpful for the public to know. We often, especially for new members, we've been going back and forth and looking at the funds within some of these housing for economic development tools, and we hear the term obligated and we don't really know what that means.
Sure.
For all of us, so that's really helpful. So thank you for that. I'm still not sure about the Good Life is Calling campaign, not because of the independent campaign, but because we do have a tourism department that I believe should focus on tourism and economic development. Mm-hmm. And, I think about the redundancy that we addressed these last couple of years with combining different agencies. Mm-hmm. And I just don't know if that was ever a conversation, with you and Governor Pillen, because it seems, we had the tourism come in here, and I'll be the first to admit, I didn't think that there was alignment on both the campaigns there for tourism,
That's right.
which should be about economic development. It's not about just bringing people here. It's about people coming, investing dollars, but also bringing people here, internships, making sure kids stay. And I don't know why we don't have some alignment on that. And I don't know if there's been talks about combining agencies. We did that with natural resources and there's two agents, Department of Energy. Right?
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you. But I feel like it's not good when we have two different messages out there and there's just huge discrepancies in what they're actually doing and how we can connect them to economic impact. So I didn't know if you could speak to that.
You know, quite frankly, Senator Vargas, I don't disagree with you. I do think that there should be one message, but I think the one message should be from a Nebraska firm that understands our way of life and has the gravitas to be able to articulate why Nebraska is a great place. As an agency, we don't believe that we should be made a mockery of, and made a mockery of by an agency that's not even from Nebraska. So I don't disagree with you. I think there should be alignment. I think what I can tell you is that, and my teammates will attest to this, it's created some confusion in the marketplace because of the two different campaigns. So I think The Good Life is Calling is a great representation of who we are. I beg to differ with the tourism model and their slogan. And I think a number of Nebraskans don't like being made fun of.
Well, I would agree with that. I would like to see, I don't know a better word, I hate the word synergy, but we gotta work something out because
I agree.
If both these are government agencies and remind me, is this ongoing or is this a one-time $10 million appropriation?
No, this would be ongoing.
Okay, all right.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And it would be the first time in the history of our state that the Department of Economic Development would run a true marketing campaign, telling the story about our state.
All right, thank you. Back to ARPA, we are still receiving concerns from people who are waiting for their ARPA awards. And we're getting requests from other people who say, is there some ARPA money available that's unobligated? And how much is it? It's our committee that deals with that. And would you help give us a timeline on how you think you're going to proceed through the grants and if you're going to see some unobligated money?
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me say this. The program, and I'll speak to LB 1014 as well as LB 1024. That total dollar amount is $646,814,178. In terms of obligated, that number is $495,148,816. That's already been obligated. When we look at dispersed, that number is only $51.9 million. However, the disbursement process has a longer tail to it simply because it's a reimbursement process based on the drawdown. So I'd be happy to address anyone that has any conversations about a slowdown. Now, there are parts of some of the funding, and I think Senator Vargas is aware of this, is the $250 million that is not under our influence. And so that funding, we have no jurisdiction over that funding. We get calls about that all the time, but we have no.
Still call me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we have no jurisdiction
That's
over
a
that
different
funding.
agency you're saying.
Well, it's the, I think it was a senatorial legislative committee that has influence over the movement of that money. Let me say that.
All right, and have you had ineligible recipients that are not going to use the money or some that are turning back any excess?
We have had a small number of those that was really more so around shovel ready. These are federal dollars. And as we all know in this room, federal dollars come with a different set of stipulations. And some of those stipulations are fairly laborious, including the controls that you have to put in place. So there have been a few organizations that have decided that they would rather not go that route.
Very good. Well, thank you. We appreciate you keeping us up to date as we do get requests, especially with our fiscal analyst. We've asked them to keep us informed about those programs and those dollars.
Absolutely.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Director.
Thank you all.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak to the Department of Economic Development budget? All right, welcome. This can be proponent, opponent, or neutral. We take them in any order here.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi. Welcome. My name is Gayla Chambers, Gayla Lee Chambers, and I'll spell it for you. Gayla Lee, Lee -CHAMBERS. I'm here supporting the Department of, did I get all the spelling done?
That's it.
Okay, all right. I'm here supporting the Department of Economic Development for this reason. They have a program that have been a essential help to our overall goal in our nonprofit organization, which is called Together We Achieve Miracles, their internship program. It has helped us tremendously meet some of our goals that we needed. And also, too, it helped us to mentor students in pursuit of some of their goals and that have to do with broadcasting. And so I just want to relay that information and hope that there will be money continue to be appropriate in that area, because we are one of the recipients of that funding. And I'm telling you, we could not have been where we are today with that funding. Also, too, I'm in a support of the funding that has to do with the 1024 funding and overseen by the Department of Economic Development. They have the people that are expert, experience, knowledge, that know how to navigate that spending for the goodness of the people in Nebraska, as well as South Omaha and North Omaha. And so I just wanted to relay that information because I see the benefits for them overseeing that money and to be a strong alliance to the North and South Omaha with that Bill 1024. Thank you very much.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there other testifiers regarding Department of Economic Development?
Hello, good afternoon.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clements and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Tori Osborne, Tori Osborne, and I am Senator Slama's legislative aide. And I'm here on behalf of Senator Slama in regard to DED's budget, and this is neutral testimony. Last year, Senator Slama's LB 977 passed unanimously. The intention of LB 977 is the creation of a state grant program that can help fund projects to expand electrical system capacities and enhance redundancy and resilience. LB 977 specifically sought to address upgrading the electrical infrastructure in Falls City. Therefore, LB 977 was passed with the intent to be a one-time transfer and appropriation to the Site and Building Development Fund, with the intent for the $15 million to be used to issue grants to any city of the second class which partners with public power utilities for purposes of expanding electrical system capacities and enhancing redundancy and resilience. In accordance with the legislative intent, the Appropriations Committee cut the cash funding provision by 15 million at DED's request. However, I believe in order to issue this grant, the program requires an extension of its cash fund authority due to the lengthy process of promulgation of rules and the timeline necessary to draft a grant program to satisfy the legislative intent. Falls City as the recipient. Therefore, we are asking to reappropriate the 15 million in cash funds for the Site and Building Development Fund to fulfill the grant. Again, thank you for your time. I would be happy to take questions from you, and then I can follow up with Senator Slama and get back with you.
Other questions from the committee? Senator Wishart.
Thanks for being here today.
Of course.
So just to clarify, not asking for any new funds, just asking to reappropriate the funds so that that program can go forward.
Yes.
Okay, great.
All right, I wasn't sure about that either, whether the funds were eliminated or if they're just still needing reappropriations.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, that's clear then. Thank you for your testimony.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on the Department of Economic Development budget?
Good afternoon, Chairperson Clements and members of the committee. My name is Carol Bodine, CarolBodeen. I'm the Director of Policy and Outreach for the Nebraska Housing Developers Association. The Nebraska Housing Developers Association is an organization with over 70 members from across the state. Our mission is to champion affordable housing. It's our goal that Nebraskans of every income have the cornerstone foundation of a healthy and affordable home. Our members include both nonprofit and for-profit developers and organizations. On behalf of NHDA and its members, I come in support of the Department of Economic Development and their work in leading all of the valuable programs that help our state succeed and exceed in so many ways in this very competitive global economy. Our organization especially appreciates the hard work and diligence that the department has shown and continues to show in administering the housing development and housing assistance funds in Nebraska. They truly have gone above and beyond in this last year with the existing programs, the ARPA funds, all of that, and they have taken it on and they have handled it, and we appreciate, we know how hard they have worked. The website for the housing division says it well. When you get right down to it, the strength of our communities and the people living in them are Nebraska's foundation. It's where it all starts. So we feel that they get it. Our living environments, the places where we call home, that's where the business starts. And I know tomorrow we'll talk more about the role that housing plays in meeting our economic development needs. But today I did want to also take the opportunity, and Director Goins mentioned it as well, is related to the spending authority for the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and also related to the Rural Workforce Housing Fund and the Middle Income Housing Fund. This increase is needed to enable the department to award all of the available resources in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The current spending authority is not sufficient for the anticipated balances of the fund. We emphasize that this has nothing to do with asking for more money. It is simply a request that the funds currently there are able to be used for the well-documented housing needs in our state. This situation also relates to the Rural Workforce Housing Fund and the Middle Income Workforce Housing Fund. For these funds, we are asking that there be a spending authority designated for any remaining amounts in these funds that have been previously appropriated but are not under contract as of the end of this fiscal year. These funds were appropriated as a result of last year's legislation, LB 1011, and were transfers from the general fund. It's possible that some of these funds which were appropriated last year may not be under contract by the end of fiscal year 23. This is not a result of lack of need or lack of work on behalf of the department, but rather the timing of the application cycles. They had a lot of work to get done, a lot of applications and funding cycles to go through. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm confident that the very capable staff of DED will be better able to provide you with any additional information or clarifications on that situation.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you so much for your time.
Other proponents, other testifiers on the Economic Development Department. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clements and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Roger Nadrikal, spelled R-O-G-E-R. Last name is N as in Nancy, A-D-R-C-H-A-L. I come here before you today as the CEO of NeighborWorks Northeast Nebraska. We have offices in Norfolk and Columbus, as well as a commissioner of the governor's appointed Nebraska Commission on Housing and Homelessness, and also a member of the Nebraska Housing Developer Association that you just heard from Carol. I'm here to support the comments that Carol just shared with you in reference to the spending authority of the Department of Economic Development. I support the many programs provided by the department, especially those related to housing development activities. We are a recipient, a many-time recipient of both the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the Rural Workforce Housing Fund over the past 28 years. The staff at DED has informed us that the current spending authority that the department currently has is insufficient of the resources they have available to commit to housing projects in Nebraska. As Carol's indicated, I believe the current spending authority is around $12.7 million, which is much less than the funds available in the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund balance. I ask that you have more conversations with the department to determine the exact situation and what changes can be made to get these funds invested in affordable housing projects throughout the state. Also, Carol indicated a similar situation is with the Rural Workforce Housing Fund and the Middle Income Workforce Housing Fund. The spending authority in these programs expires on June 30th, 2023. And I understand that it's a possibility all those funds will not be committed by the end of June. So I'm asking that the spending authority would be maybe an extension on that timeline. And like Carol indicated, it's not a result of a lack of need. It's just a matter of timing to get these funds committed and allocated by the department. So once again, I just ask you as a committee to take this into consideration, have conversations with the department to work out a remedy to get these funds invested into the communities of Nebraska.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Other testifiers regarding Department of Economic Development? Seeing none, we have position comments. We have one proponent remark, and that will conclude Agency 72. Next on our agenda is Senator Wayne. LB 349. There it is. Just a minute, gotta switch notebooks again. All right, we'll open the hearing for LB 349. Senator Wayne, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Clements. My name is Justin Wayne, W-A-J-U-S-T-I-N-W-A-Y-N-E, and I represent Legislative District 13, which is North Omaha and Northeast Douglas County. Today, LB 349 is a very simple bill. One thing I think when we talk about growing Nebraska, we have to figure out how to dig into innovation. And I think innovation is very important as we talk about growing Nebraska. The Innovation Act, I think was, from my research, was 2011. And so when I started digging into these numbers, what I found out is that they've only actually funded 2 Black-owned startups for around $500,000. And I don't think it's a race thing. The more and more I kept digging into this, it seems like it might be a geographical thing, where we should probably invest more and have people on the ground in different communities. I think Omaha is completely different than rural Nebraska, but I do think innovation happens in rural Nebraska. There are a lot of companies who are innovative in rural Nebraska, and I think we cannot dispute the benefit that Invest Nebraska and the Innovation Act has provided for our state. Some reports even say for every dollar invested, $100 to $200 is made through our state or reinvested in our state. So I believe in what Invest Nebraska is doing. I believe in what we've done at the Innovation Act as a body. But I think if we were to break this up by congressional districts, we might get more bang for our buck by working with startups in those communities and taking a more local approach to innovation versus a statewide approach. And so what this bill does, and to not make anybody upset, we just tripled it and said we'll give each dollar the equal amount of dollars to each congressional district. So the thought is, instead of having one person like Invest Nebraska, it could be one person like Invest Nebraska, but we could have three or we could have one, but we want to make sure we break it up, the dollars locally. And I think the best way to do that is through congressional districts. So that's the genesis of the bill. I think in 2021, Invest Nebraska did about 40 deals, about $317 million in venture capital. Through January 1st of 2012 to December 31st of 2021, I believe about $1 billion were deployed through this type of mechanism. And I think we can double or triple that. And I think we can do that by focusing on local innovation rather than taking the statewide approach. So it's really that simple. If this budget committee, appropriations committee do not have the dollars to maybe triple it, I'm okay with doubling it. But I do think we have to put some language in there about breaking it up by congressional districts so we can focus on innovation at the local level. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions, Senator Vargas?
Thank you, Senator Wayne, for bringing this bill. Do you have any data or information on past distribution based on geography? Obviously, they didn't collect that necessarily explicitly, but
there is somebody who has that data. And again, it's not, let me be clear here, I'm not knocking or talking negative of Invest Nebraska. What I'm trying to do is increase more innovation. And I think if we have the local feel to it at the local level, we can do that. But somebody does have the data behind me.
I think we set the standard for splitting by congressional district for a lot of other bills. So I think that makes sense.
Other questions? Seeing none, we'll welcome proponents for LB 349.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clements, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Richard Byer, R-I-C-H-A-R-D. The last name is B-A-I-E-R. As many of you know, I'm a registered lobbyist with the Nebraska Bankers, but today I'm appearing in my volunteer role as a past chairman of the Invest Nebraska Corporation Board, and also currently serve as a board member emeritus. I'm also representing the Omaha Chamber of Commerce. I do want to extend a special thank you to Senator Wayne for his commitment to innovation and entrepreneurship. This has been a passion of mine. And maybe that was my goal, is to share a little bit of background on the Innovation Act. As many of you know, I was the DED director, and I think that's the last time I testified before this committee. So it's been a nice dry spell for me not to have to do that. But during my time at DED, we actually commissioned a group called the Battelle Research Partnership out of Ohio. And one of the things that we asked them to do was identify Nebraska's shortcomings, and they identified a variety of activities, and that mostly in the areas of innovation and technology, research, large project development, and then lastly, workforce attraction and retention. And obviously, because of term limits, none of you were here when we kind of went through this process, but what resulted out of that and the legislative solution to that was an effort called the Talent and Innovation Initiative, or passionately for those of us science geeks, TI squared, that we pushed through the legislature. And we're going to give you a little bit of a perspective on that. The Talent and Innovation Initiative included creation of the Business Innovation Act, the Site and Building Fund, which you've already heard some about today, the Intern Nebraska program, as well as research and development tax credits. So it was a pretty monumental lift for the legislature.
We were actively involved with folks like Senator Fisher and Senator and Congressman Flood and a variety of others to enact that legislation. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Business Innovation Act, and you'll find on the top of my comments on page 2 kind of a breakdown of the various programs. You'll see there that are built into the Business Innovation Act, pre-seed prototyping grant. That's really kind of the initial stages of entrepreneurship. How do I have an idea and begin to develop a prototype? So the state has matching grants. We also found out that SBIR, and I apologize, I have a typo in there, SBIR and STTR matching grants, Nebraska was woefully short, as well as academic R&D grants, seed and commercialization funding for people who want to commercialize a new business, and then lastly, microenterprise. As we began to look at putting this legislation together, it was really incumbent upon us to make sure that we had a variety of things in there. Number one, we wanted it to be impactful, and number two, to do that, part of that was to make sure that our businesses had skin in the game. And you'll see that in terms of matching funds, both from the founder of the business, but also from other investors, whether that's other angel investors or other venture capital. So today I did include for you the recently released 2022 BIA review, which was conducted by the Bureau of Business Research. Gives you a variety of background and information. More specifically, I would point you to the chart that's on the top of page 9. And it gets at some of the metrics that Senator Wayne was approaching and discussing. And again, we have had almost 400 companies that have received support through the Business Innovation Act. These are the ones that have, that have responded. And you'll see that to date, the groups that responded have kind of placed out there almost $40 million in BIA funding. And that's in all of these programs, in these 5 areas of activity. But what you will see is the private investment follow-up was up to $10 for every dollar of BIA funding. And then also, if you track then the revenue of those new companies, it was more than $12 for each dollar that the state invested. So clearly, it's having a huge impact. The salaries are well above where the state averages are at. So again, I think that's a strong metrics. I think in the early days, a lot of the focus was on technology and software companies. That's really started to change. We're seeing a lot of manufacturing companies, a lot of biotechnology companies, a lot of healthcare companies, people who are patenting surgical robotics and those kinds of activities. So clearly, the other thing I would share with you is just from a geographic perspective, our projects have been spread statewide. And I wouldn't want to question Senator Wayne's intent, because clearly we need to do a better job in North and South Omaha and some of our underserved communities. But I would tell you right now, a lot of our activity is in Lincoln and Omaha. And it's sort of that continuum of early stage businesses all the way through this sort of high growth mentality. So I think the numbers speak for themselves. Obviously, you have difficult decisions to make, but I did want to share with you that, quite frankly, that the programs are working and they're very, very successful. I might, before my time runs out, I might address the comment about the diversity. And I would tell you that we have been very deliberate. Senator Clements, if I might finish that thought.
Oh, yes.
We have been very deliberate in terms of bringing on new minorities onto our board of directors. So we recently brought on a South Omaha representative, and we've also brought on a African-American representative onto our board. So people who are involved in this line of business activity. So we've been very deliberate in that process, and I think we're making huge headway as a state. And I just encourage you to continue to support, whether it's this proposal or others, to support innovation and entrepreneurship in the state.
Other questions from the committee? Senator Dover?
Yeah, I just wonder if you could just explain where it says the department shall ensure the funding under the act is distributed evenly among 3 congressional districts to the maximum extent possible. Just your past experience in dealing with that type of allocation, pros and cons, those kind of things.
I'm going to put my old DED hat on. That was always really tough for us to balance, because it's really hard for somebody in state government or in a not-for-profit like Invest Nebraska to say, we're going to have all of our projects this year in Omaha, or they're all going to be in Lincoln, or they're all going to be in rural Nebraska. Again, quite frankly, our initial round of projects was mostly Lincoln and Omaha, and Western Nebraska trailed behind. I tell you now, they're catching up. But that's really hard to implement. I understand the intent, but from an operational side, it's really, really difficult. But obviously, our board is statewide, so we have members on the Invest Nebraska board, for example, from Kearney, North Platte, farther west. And so we have a diversity of our board membership, and we really work hard to keep the state engaged.
Other questions?
One last question, I guess. So, I mean, I would think that, I mean, I'm from Norfolk, Nebraska. I'd like to see us get as much as we could get, obviously, for the benefit of my constituents. But it seems as though sometimes where my spouses prefer to live, or there's already existing structures in place, or perhaps there may be businesses that can support the other business and stuff. I just would think it'd be somewhat challenging to, I mean, to me, I'm a independent market, private business person. It seems to me you really need to go where the greatest potential is. Comments?
Yeah, and that level of activity fluctuates again a lot depending on types of activities. If you see an uptick in the ag sector, for example, there's more dollars out there, so you're going to see people trying to come up with new innovation. We've done some things. I use the co-working space up in Norfolk as a good example, or the Ag Tech Incubator here on East Campus. Those are the kinds of foundational work they're doing right now as well. So, but yeah, it is really challenging to sort of ride those cycles and know what area might be hot when.
Thank you.
You bet.
Is this mostly business startups, or are there some ongoing business that you help expand?
Yeah, there's been a few existing companies, mostly Senator. It gets into a lot more detail. A lot of times you'll have the lifestyle entrepreneurs, so the local restaurants, those kinds of folks. Our focus is really the folks who are in that high growth arena who are going to bring money from outside of Nebraska into the area. So we've done some existing company work, and we continue to help them grow through that continuum. So they might get a prototyping grant, but then we help fund them through commercialization, help them capture venture capital from out of state with our team. So we kind of work our way through that process. So I'd say it gets a little convoluted because some of our existing companies that have been around 6 or 8 years, but they're still working their way through that continuum.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Senator Armendariz.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you guys participate or sponsor Startup Weekend or any kind of programs like that? And maybe in Western Nebraska?
We do a variety of activities across the state. We're involved with the Bio Nebraska efforts. We're involved with 1 million cups, is that what it's called? I'm drawing, I think it's 1 million cups. So there's a variety of those kinds of activities of which we help sponsor. We have a great team, quite frankly, in Invest Nebraska of legal minds who are dedicated. They get up in the morning at 6 a.m. and go to bed at 10 o'clock at night thinking about this space. And I think Nebraska ought to be proud of the work that they're doing. And so they are heavily invested in attending a lot of those meetings. So, and I wouldn't know that a lot of times they call me on their drive home at night just to check in.
Yeah,
about 8 o'clock
I have
at
to
night.
wonder about the farmer that has invented something for a problem he has that never sees the light of day because it's solving his problem, but
Right.
maybe he isn't enticed to participate in something like that.
Senator, actually, and if I may follow up to that, one of the things we saw this last year, the American Farm Bureau kind of had an innovation showcase. They took sort of the best companies from around the country. Three of the top 5 companies were from Nebraska, and the winner was from Nebraska. If you've not ever seen the Grain Weevil, I'd encourage you to go on YouTube. It is a Roomba vacuum for a grain bin. And what it's designed to do is push the grain down so that someone doesn't have to go into the grain bin and risk their own personal safety. So those are the kinds of innovative activities that are out there. And it crosses, again, that one's a mix of ag and manufacturing and IT all wrapped into one.
That's great. Thanks.
Other questions? Seeing none?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Are there other proponents for LB 349?
If anyone is missing the yellow sheet of paper, there's a packet. Good afternoon, Senator Clements, members of the committee. My name is John Hladek, and I'm testifying JOHN HLADIK, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Center for Rural Affairs and the Nebraska Economic Developers Association. And the previous testifier did a really good job talking about the 4 sort of biggest programs within the Business Innovation Act. And the 5th program doesn't get as much attention, but ends up making a really big difference in Nebraska and on main streets, both in Omaha and Lincoln and statewide. And that's the Microenterprise Loan and Technical Assistance Program. This gets the smallest amount of funding by far, but we think it's the most accessible, and it's currently making a very big impact in hundreds of communities across the state. And that's simply because micro-entrepreneurship is the career of choice for so many Nebraskans. We have over 145,000 businesses in the state with 5 or fewer employees. That's 86% of all businesses in Nebraska, and 74% of Nebraskans consider a micro business as their sole source of income. And for these business owners, as you know, the past 2 years have been extraordinarily difficult with inflation and supply chain disruptions. And that's where we're able to come in, established specifically to help these businesses overcome obstacles through training and technical assistance and targeted lending. The Microenterprise Assistance Program was designed for moments like these, and it's really stepped up. Right now, it's exceeding expectations. The Nebraska Small Business Collaborative has been a recipient of these funds since 2012. The collaborative includes Catholic Charities of Omaha, Center for Rural Affairs, Community Development Resources of Nebraska, and the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. And together we provide that technical assistance and loans to entrepreneurs who can't get a bank loan. They can't get a bank loan because they don't have enough collateral or because they have credit shortcomings, or it's a startup that the bank simply can't fund. And so we can use the most recent data available to show what difference it makes when we can support some of those businesses. In 2020 alone, this collaborative received just $500,000 for technical assistance and another $500,000 for lending. And each of our organizations had to provide a 35% match using non-state funds. And this small investment had really impressive results. Over 6,300 small businesses received technical assistance and classroom training through the program. 164 businesses accessed direct loans through the program, and more than $4.1 million in new capital was put to work through the program. And because we're working with first-time entrepreneurs that banks can't or won't fund, we know a lot of these businesses just wouldn't have opened if it wasn't for the Microenterprise Assistance Program. So we support the committee's, we appreciate the committee's support for these important programs, and we hope that can continue. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions about it.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other proponents for LB 349? Seeing none, is there anyone in opposition of LB 349? Seeing none, anyone here in the neutral capacity? Seeing none, Senator Lane, you're welcome to close.
Thank you, Chairman Clements. Again, if this committee feels that 3 times might be too much, I'm okay with lowering that amount. I think the key is to put some more money in here. I think it's important. You heard the return on investment that we make, and I think we have to figure out how to break this thought process up by congressional district to make sure we start innovation at the local level. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see. I have a position comment, 1 proponent, no opponents, no neutral. And that concludes the hearing for LB 349. Next, we open the hearing for LB 682, Senator Vargas.
Ready?
Oh, yes, welcome.
I don't need to startle anybody. Good afternoon, Chairman Clements and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Senator Tony Vargas, Tony-Vargas. And today I'm presenting LB 682, a bill that would appropriate $500,000 to the Department of Economic Development for the purposes of carrying out an economic development study. This study will be focused on the development of a South Omaha business park and shall include information relating to infrastructure, transportation, site preparation, workforce, talent, attraction and retention, economic impact, and business development opportunities. The study will be limited to consideration within 68105 and 68107 zip codes. I'll explain why in a minute. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, Latino communities and entrepreneurs were growing at a faster rate than any other demographic. The economic contributions of Latinos in the United States has also grown significantly since 2010, from 1.7 trillion that year to 2.6 trillion in 2018. It's been devastating to see the unprecedented economic hardship these past years that have caused our communities. Now, Southeast Omaha concentrates the largest population of Latinos in the country, close to 57% of all Latinos city living in the area and representing almost 36% of the population of Southeast Omaha. Providing funds for an economic development study will allow us to better understand the needs of the two zip codes, 68105, 68107, and ensure that the development of Business Park has a positive long-term economic impact in South Omaha. For some of you that have been here, and I don't think that many of us have been here, I think a few of us have been part of this. I think Senator Clements, definitely Senator Wishart and Senator McDonald. You may recall that this committee funded a North Omaha economic plan as well. It was, I think, maybe $350,000, something to that effect. And the reason we did it is because Senator Wayne brought this bill. It was focused on some of the aspects of what we are now investing into this airport business park in North Omaha. And the rationale that came to us and what we worked on and we talked about was before we invest more funds in specific areas, it's beneficial for us as a state and the Department of Economic Development to do their due diligence on where are areas of economic opportunity. And in conversations with DED and in my community, there is a portion, and Senator McDonald and I talked about this, there's a portion of South Omaha that exists in both of our districts that is probably the most apt for doing some sort of business park in the future. Unfortunately, it's not something we have really looked at or studied in some cohesive way. And the report that came out with that $350,000 appropriation for that North Omaha Airport project has led to a lot of the economic development we're now seeing in North Omaha. There is a need for us to do much more analysis and study for a specific area of South Omaha. And I think that in conversation with the DED, this is an important step forward for us figuring out what more can we do when we're talking about leveraging the existing. I have a different issue in our districts in South Omaha than North Omaha. We don't have a lot of land that hasn't been developed. And some of the land that hasn't been developed is some of it is either city owned, some of it is county owned, some of it is private business owned. But there's a continuous area and strip, and that's what the area we really want to focus on. So that's where this came from. Looking at something that we've done well in the past when we funded that project. $500,000 was what we started off with. I think it could be done for less, honestly. I think in the hundreds of thousands is we want a good study that's actually going to lead us in the same direction on some of the things we've seen in North Omaha. And I think a good study will be important for a business park like a similar project that what we saw that we funded years ago. So that's what this came from. Happy to answer any questions, but I appreciate the committee and as part of this, where we funded that and has led us to where we are now with some of this work in North Omaha. So.
Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. We will now welcome proponents for LB 682. Welcome.
Gracias. Good afternoon. I'm Itzel Lopez, ITCEL, LOPEC. I'm the board president of the Latino Economic Development Council, and I'm here today to support LB 682. My vision for Omaha is to see a community that is inclusive of all members of society, regardless of citizenship status, color, race, ethnic background. A community that provides access to quality services for all. As I mentioned, I'm here today to support LB 682, which will appropriate funding for an economic development study of a South Omaha business park. Many will be surprised to learn that there are about 1,500 Latino-owned businesses in Nebraska, and that the Latino population in Nebraska will triple by 2050. And I, among other Latino community leaders, have an active role in educating non-Latinos on how to better understand and engage our demographic. Now, I share all that because Southeast Omaha is mainly of Latino Hispanic descendant community members. And this is why I also believe that an economic development study will allow us to better understand the needs of the two zip codes today presented at 68105, 107, and ensure that the development of the business park in either area has a positive long-term economic impact of South Omaha. That's all I have. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for coming. Thank you for your testimony. Are there additional proponents? Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcos, M-A-R-C-O-S, last name Mora, M-O-R-A. I would love to see the study take place. You know, I've been in South Omaha all my life. My family has been in South Omaha since 1925. Got 2 more years, we can celebrate 100 years. We love South Omaha, Nebraska, love Nebraska football. We just love everything about it. But there's still a lot to be done in South Omaha. And if you look at the history, over time, you know, there's been some just wonderful immigrants, and there's a lot of hardworking people in South Omaha. But I think this study would really help to identify, you know, what are our needs in South Omaha. Sometimes we feel like we're left out in a forgotten little city down there. So I am very much in support to see this happen, because we just want to make a difference, right? I think Omaha, Nebraska, we just want to celebrate our great city, our great state. And I think anything that can help make that better is a win-win for everybody. So thank you for your time.
Are there questions from the committee? Let's see, I had one. Do you see the city of Omaha doing any development studies of this sort?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we've been talking to the city. I'm also part of the South Omaha Business District Board. I forgot to identify some of the things I do. I run the Cinco de Mayo Festival. I'm also part of the Latino Economic Development Council. Not at this time. I know as advocates, we just have been trying to see some things happen, but no, we really have. We've seen it in other parts of town, but not really in South Omaha.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
All right, thank you.
Are there additional proponents for LB 682? Welcome.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. Cesar Garcia, CESAR, GARCIA. I'm Executive Director of Canopy South, an organization serving the South Omaha community. Canopy South is in support of LB 682 for appropriation of $500,000 to perform a comprehensive economic development study for the potential development of a South Omaha business park. Canopy South is a nonprofit organization based in South Omaha, focusing our work on elevating economic vitality, enhancing community vibrancy, bolstering high-quality education, and developing affordable and mixed-income housing. Since 2019, we have engaged in hundreds of hours with residents, stakeholders, institutions, and service providers in zip code 68107. We have completed neighborhood surveys, needs assessments, a gap analysis, a market study, and a multimodal transportation study. For the last several months, our organization have been working diligently to ensure a comprehensive master plan is created for South Omaha as a whole, focusing on economic development, affordable and mixed-income housing, site prep, infrastructure, industrial, and commercial development. This initiative was born out of a strategic plan last year and has been at the forefront of our mind as we engage with partners like the City of Omaha, residents, and various stakeholders. South Omaha has been a bustling hub of agriculture business in our metro for decades. Despite the absence of holistic economic development plan and a lack of resources allocated towards its development, South Omaha has managed to thrive and grow. The community has been able to leverage its location and access to major transportation routes, including rail and highways, to attract and retain businesses. With its strong ties to the meatpacking industry, the community has also developed a diverse economy that includes food processing, manufacturing, and other service industries. Despite facing challenges, South Omaha has continued to adapt and evolve, cementing its position as a vital and thriving business community in the Omaha metro area. Now it is time to provide the South Omaha community with the resources to execute a comprehensive economic development study that translates into facilitating economic growth, ensuring sustainable development, attracting investment, promoting community inclusion, and most importantly, enhancing the quality of life of the residents of South Omaha. Canopy South is not only in support of the economic development study, but also ready to sit at the table, share our knowledge, and make sure that the study directly addresses the needs of our community. Last thing I will say is that we have been working for the last 3 years with this community, and we have looked at different sites and what could be a very holistic, comprehensive approach that we could take together to not only focus on housing, industrial, but making sure that it's all coordinated. South Omaha has grown in a way that sometimes you even wonder how all this is happening. You can find a very nice house and very nice neighborhood right there close to the meatpacking plants, right? It is time to make an effort to allocate all those industries in a coordinated way that will serve the community now and in the future. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? I'll ask you the same question. Have you been involved with the city of Omaha in seeing any efforts to help doing studies like this?
Correct. So we have been working with economic development. You know how it is in the cities. It changes. People go, people come. There is a new person working now in economic development with the city of Omaha. But this person brings a lot of experience on a lot of projects that they've done in Iowa. And now we're looking into South Omaha. We just, about 3 weeks ago, we just got in a car and drove through South Omaha for 4 hours. Just getting out of the car in the snow, looking at the size, thinking about what it could be. And so there's interest. And of course, there's always lack of resources.
Very good. Other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there other proponents for LB 682? Seeing none, anyone in the opposition? Seeing none, anyone here in the neutral capacity? Seeing none, Senator Vargas, welcome to close.
Thank you, fellow members of the Appropriations Committee and Chair Clements. A couple of things I just wanted to add. One, I know the city is dedicated to doing more intent work. There's a reason, I think, there's a difference between the city of Omaha doing sort of their work for planning, and they have a planning department that focuses on that. In some ways, a little similar to how Director Goins was speaking, that tourism is focused on tourism and his department is focused on economic development. The city of Omaha might be focused on a planning side, but that isn't always really focused on economic development. And the parameters of this is there are tracts of land, like 300 acres, that are very specific that we want to study. This could be a huge economic benefit to our state. We're talking about being able to attract new businesses to come here. We need to make sure that there's the infrastructure that is available for different land availability. There's a short turnaround time when we're talking about trying to meet the needs of potential companies coming to the state. And I think we've heard it in the past from the director. It's why we've invested funds into many different DED programs, including the Site Development Fund or even the incentive package. This is getting ahead of that. This is within these different communities within Senator McDonald's and I district. There are places, but we need to better understand what is needed, what's the economic opportunity impact. And if we have the answers to this in a study from DED, then when DED is looking at potential places to do investments in the future through some of their other programs that we have, this is something that they can point to, and it can help us as a state, and what you heard from some private entities, to figure out what we as a community also do, and along with the business community. So I appreciate having Omaha Chamber's support and the Latino Economic Development Council and Canopy South and others. And I ask that, again, it's not a $500,000 or nothing. This is a set amount that we can put towards a study. And I'm willing to work with some of the other partners to find matching funds to do something as well.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Dover?
I noticed you had like 2 zip codes already. Is any adjacent zip codes not continuous with the area you're interested in? When they left out, it's kind of, I looked on the map briefly. I just was kind of wondering why that's the line.
It's hard to describe, and I'll have to take you, we'll take you to some of our, favorite restaurants. You have to see it to understand that this is where there's the most land that is either industrial land or is just not currently being used. And that was the reason behind those zip codes, just because we're pretty dense in terms of, housing in the area, but this is the area where we just don't have as much development happening.
Any questions? Senator Erdman.
Thank you, Senator Clemens. Thank you, Senator Vargas. Senator Vargas, who might do this study?
This would be something that either DED would contract out to another entity. They've done that in the past. With the Star Wars project, we use HDR, right? I can't remember who they used when they did this for the North Omaha Airport business project, but it'd be competitive bid process like they usually do. I trust their judgment in finding who is going to do the best job of this, or maybe they do it internally. But my hope is they do contract with somebody. We didn't lay it out in this, and I can put language in there to do that. But yeah.
So would it be possible, whoever bids this, if they see how much we've appropriated, 500,000, that's what the bid will be?
Yes, but similar to the work that we've done in some of the other committees, even the East Side Recovery Grant, we had multiple bids for doing the contract work, and that some people came at the high end, some people came at the middle, some people came much, much lower. I trust DED's judgment on how they would choose who's the best based on the quality of the proposal and not just the amount of funding.
Okay, so how long is this study going to take?
We didn't put a date in this, but I'm happy to put something in that this is something that will be done by the end of this year or by the beginning of the next year.
Does that seem exorbitant to you that they might get it done in 6 months and it's 500,000?
Yes, but not exorbitant, but the amount we put in was just for contingencies and starting off with the conversation. I think we've seen plans that can be done for a couple $100,000 to $300,000, but it depends on the actual work product. The closest thing I can tell you is when we were doing this East Side Economic Recovery process, we had third-party entities that were working to then do some planned studies. We saw this with the Star Wars, where they were doing some of the planned studies, and that cost, I can't remember the cost if you serve on the committee, but it was $2 million. So my hope is this is I trust DED to be frugal with the funds.
I don't think it makes any difference about DED. Once they find out how much we've appropriated, that's what the bid will be. That's how it works. It's like when we're going to do the museum on the 5th floor. The architectural firm is like $230,000 to design 3,000 square feet. Does that seem a little odd? That's crazy. So 500,000 for a study is just, I don't know. And what did Omaha do with all the money we give them? We give them hundreds of millions of dollars. Why haven't they used some of that money to do the studies and things they need to do? What did they do with it?
Which funds are you talking
about?
The ARPA money. Well, some of the ARPA money has been designated to all across the state. If you remember from 1024, we allocated, $700 million from the ARPA funds to all across the state that still hasn't been dispersed. I think we saw that report even from DED. And some of those funds still haven't been dispersed even in the east side of Omaha. But a large component of that was for, to some extent, I would say shovel-ready projects or things that have already been started to move and have that momentum. This is looking to areas that we have not studied the infrastructure, the development that currently exists in land, and that's what we want to look at. So it's not just the South Omaha business, just the entirety of South Omaha. It's a very narrow area. Again, the best example I can come up with is the North Omaha Airport area. It was very discreet how we studied that area, and this is similar in that vein.
I'm thinking this is still exorbitant. I don't care how you figure it.
Other questions? Seeing none, we have position comments for the record. We have one proponent, one opponent, and none in the neutral. That concludes the hearing for LB 682. We will now open the hearing for LB 784. Senator McKinney. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Clements and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Terrell McKinney, TERRELLMCKINNEY, and I represent District 11 in the legislature, which is North Omaha. And I'm here to discuss LB 784. LB 784 appropriates $25 million over 2 years to the Department of Economic Development to an innovation hub partner located in the city of Omaha. The money will be used for wet and dry lab space, commercialization of bioscience, agri-tech, life science, health industries, and small business development. Last session, my priority bill, LB 450, adopted the Innovation Hub Act. Innovation hubs are initiatives to generate and sustain businesses by providing the tools, skills, and expertise to cultivate innovators and entrepreneurs who aspire to enhance educational and economic opportunities for themselves and their communities. Innovation hubs manifest in various ways, depending on how cities or initiatives are defined. As a state that is at a crossroads in our urban and rural communities, innovation hubs can be a catalyst for much needed change and innovation. Placing an innovation hub in a community like North Omaha can be a tool for multiple reasons. One is having a place in the community where business ideas can take shape, facilitate natural collisions between someone with just an idea and a seasoned business owner. Another is centralizing resources for access to capital, information, and resources for business planning, bookkeeping, and business development from start to finish. The purpose of LB 784 is to increase the possibilities for change and innovation in an area that is doing its best to uplift itself and to change perceptions. When you look across the country, the areas focused on this type of change have vibrant and thriving innovation. Areas that are focused on innovation have vibrant and thriving innovation hubs, like the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs in Atlanta, Georgia. In the interim, I was able to visit the Russell Center. In my short time there, I was rubbing shoulders with executives at Microsoft and Coca-Cola and entrepreneurs looking just to get started, which is why LB 450 was essential and why LB 784 is important. Let's commit to change and innovation in the state of Nebraska. Governor Pillen has stated on multiple occasions that he wants to invest in the state. Investment into innovation hubs is the investment we need. According to the Institute of Innovation and Knowledge Exchange, an innovation hub presents a compelling platform for harnessing capability, focusing on investment and stimulating enterprise. The key to successful innovation hub development is to cluster the organization's capacity around new and emerging economic areas of growth. Organizations that create innovation hubs can mobilize innovation initiatives quickly and optimize the time taken to create new value for their end users and themselves. Innovation hubs provide an effective vehicle for shaping the dynamics of the go-to-market solutions. Their primary focus on innovation makes measuring their tangible and intangible outcomes more readily identifiable. Three determinants to characterize the benefits of an innovation is they act as a catalyst for driving organizational change. They create the basis for multiplication of factors for growth, and they become an instrument for attracting capital investments, which is much needed in areas like North Omaha. In addition, there's direct correlation between the development of a hub and the increase in learning development. Such activities instill a high-performing culture that strengthens the organization's readiness for innovation and builds its knowledge base. In close, I hope that the committee can see the vision and benefit of investing in innovation hubs and a potential benefit for our state. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Senator Erdman?
Thank you, Senator Clements. Thank you, Senator McKinney. Senator McKinney, I read in your statement of intent, it was 15 million this year and 10 million next year. And then when I look at the fiscal note, and your bill, it says 30 million each year.
So there's an amendment that I submitted that I'm not sure if the committee got, but I changed that in the amendment. I'm not sure. Sorry if y'all don't have it, but I introduced it last week and I thought y'all might have grabbed it, but Sorry. Yeah, okay.
Look at this copy. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. It says 30 million. It says 30 million, yeah. So I don't know if the fiscal note's correct.
So I'll get the amendment to the committee. So that's the difference.
It's just the statement.
Senator, you're asking for 30 million, correct?
25.
25?
Yeah, so I've got to change that. So that's on me.
15 and 10.
The bill says 30.
I know. The amendment switches that.
It says 60 total, 2 years of 30.
No, I know, but the amendment takes it from 30 to 25. But it's my bad that you guys don't have the updated amendment. Is what I'm saying.
The first page here of the, right behind the bill number, LB 784.
Yeah. What about it?
Senator Dorn?
Thank you, Senator Clemens. Thank you, Senator McKinney. So to clarify it, you've introduced an amendment already, or we just don't have a copy of that?
Yes, I introduced it last week.
That's why we're
So
looking at it.
I was thinking the committee would have been able to grab it, but I should have brought it. So that's on me.
The amendment updates it to the 15 and 10.
10, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Just Senator Armendariz.
Thank you, Senator. Is iHub a company or? And what would that be?
Innovation Hub, it's not a company, but somebody, so last year, I LB 450, the Innovation Hub Act, which allows for individuals to partner together to establish an innovation hub. So eventually, yes, it'll be a company, but it has to be formed through a partnership with multiple entities.
And where would it be located?
I wanted in North Omaha. I'm hoping somewhere within my district. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Senator.
Thank you, Senator Clemens. Just so I'm clear on this, Senator Dover mentioned that on the first page behind the numbered page, that's the committee statement. That is not an amendment. So what I'm going to ask is, do you have an amendment that says what your committee statement says that you submitted today? Is that what you're saying?
I have an amendment that takes it from the 30 to 15 in 1 year and 10 in another.
Okay, so your committee statement will be similar to your
amendment. Yeah.
I mean, your amendment will be similar. It says 784 appropriate 15 million in 23, 24, and 10 million in 25.
Yes.
Okay, so this is not an amendment. This is your statement. You didn't get the amendment turned in.
No, I introduced the amendment on the floor.
Okay.
It's in the record. I just assumed the committee would have saw it first, and that's why I didn't.
Because those didn't line up. Thank you.
Other questions? Does the clerk have access to that amendment? You do? All right. Will you distribute that to the members? All right. The clerk has it, so we'll have her distribute that.
Okay.
All right. Seeing no other questions, are there proponents for LB 784? Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Clements and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Rob Owen, R-O-B-O-W-E-N, and I'm the Executive Director of Bio Nebraska, a nonprofit trade association dedicated to supporting, promoting, and growing the biosciences in Nebraska. Bio Nebraska has over 100 member organizations across the state representing human health, animal health, agriculture, renewable fuels, and industrial biotech sectors. Bio Nebraska members also include service providers and academic institutions, including Metropolitan Community College, Southeast Community College, and the University of Nebraska and its 4 campuses. I'm here today to provide Bio Nebraska strong support for LB 784, which provides funding for wet lab space and funding for bioscience companies, and thank Senator McKinney for his leadership on this issue. According to recent data, there are over 18,000 jobs in Nebraska associated with the bioscience, with many of those jobs being closely tied to the ag sector. The average wage for these jobs is $82,000. If you compare that to the average wage of other private sector jobs in Nebraska of $54,000, you can see that the biosciences are creating high wage, high quality jobs. And as a state, we should continue to find ways to invest in and grow the biosciences. In order to grow our bioscience ecosystem, we need to be offering those companies and organizations living in that ecosystem some of the essentials for them to succeed, which includes wet lab space. Wet lab is laboratory space where chemicals, drugs, and other material or biological matter can be tested, analyzed, where it requires water, ventilation, and different utilities. So it's just not a tabletop. There's water, very expensive ventilation systems. Nebraska currently has 7,700 square feet of available commercial wet lab space, which is all located on Nebraska Innovation Campus in the Biotech Connector. To put that number in context, Chicago has 1 million square feet of wet lab space with 6 million square feet coming online soon. And I can't even imagine the amount of wet lab space in Boston. Now, Nebraska is not Chicago, it's not Boston, but I just wanted to show what the numbers are out there. So what do our neighbor states have if we want to come in this way? The ISU Research Park in Ames, Iowa, was founded to provide space and resources needed to advance science-based initiatives. Today, over 90 companies own or rent space in a 500-acre development with more than 800,000 square feet of developed building space, which includes 50,000 square feet of wet lab space. The BioVenture Center in Iowa City, 15,000 square feet of wet lab space. So just 2 locations in Iowa, I've identified 65,000 square feet of wet lab space. The KU Innovation Park in Lawrence, Kansas offers a variety of enterprise services for businesses at any level. It has over 40,000 square feet of wet lab space. And if you throw in wet lab space in Kansas City and Manhattan, my guess is Kansas is over 100,000 square feet of wet lab space. Nebraska has 7,700. There's a bright side. The biotech connector is usually full, which also leads to a downside. Let me just throw out 3 members of BioNebraska with the experience they've had with wet lab. One of my members, 2 or 3 person company, they had a location at the Med Center in one of the research towers. The Med Center needed their space. So my member company scoured the city of Omaha looking for wet lab space and couldn't find any until they finally settled on a space at the Center Shopping Center at 42nd Center Street that was built in 1955. And if I'm not mistaken, it was one of the first enclosed shopping centers in the entire United States. So I have a biotech connector or a biotech company in the Center Shopping Center. Another Omaha company looking for wet lab space scoured the city of Omaha. They ended up retrofitting a doctor's office in the location just north of Westroads. Another company based in Omaha decided to take the leap to come down to Lincoln for the biotech connector. They did that for 2 years and they decided that was too much time out of their day to be coming down to Lincoln. So they ended up retrofitting a dentist office on 84th and Center Street. So here are 3 biotech companies with nowhere to go. If we want to retain and recruit bioscience companies in and to Nebraska, especially startup and small companies, we need to be able to offer commercial wet lab space. It is that simple. Senator McKinney's bill will go a long way to helping erase the wet lab space deficiency in the state. We cannot let this opportunity pass us by. Again, bioscience jobs pay on an average of $82,000 a year. We should do all we can to create more bioscience jobs, and wet lab space is essential for that to happen. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Armendariz?
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Do you have a wait list of folks that would take up that space?
Well, those 3 companies would certainly have taken up space. I know in talking with the University of Nebraska Med Center and their Unimed division who are out recruiting companies, one of the first questions they get is, where is the wet lab space that we can come to? And unfortunately, the answer is usually none, and that kind of ends the conversations with that. Again, 7,700 square feet, Omaha could probably deal 10,000 square feet, and it would probably be pretty full shortly thereafter.
I guess I would like to see some active, companies that are lined up, ready to fill the space.
I'll confer with the Department of Economic Development and the Med Center to see if we can do that.
Okay, thanks.
Senator Erdman.
Thank you, Senator Clements. Thanks for coming. So if this is such an economically advantageous thing, why doesn't private industry do this?
Well, first of all, wet lab space, at least wet lab space, and I'm not talking iHubs, wet lab space is expensive initially. It's about $500 a square foot. So if you're looking at 10,000 square feet of wet lab space, you're looking at $5 million. Unfortunately, then if you're a startup, the economics are off a little bit on it. If I'm a startup, I don't want to be spending $100 a square foot because I don't have that much money to do that. So I think there's a little bit, I'm not an investor in that, but I think that's the hesitancy a little bit, is that there's probably a lot of upfront money. Then that will take some time to recoup over the years. because if you're paying a startup who is getting money from the Business Innovation Act or from angel investors. That would be my guess on that.
Okay.
But there's definitely a need in the state of Nebraska. I mean, there's no wet lab space in Omaha. We have a world-class university, medical center and research center, and there's nowhere for a med tech company to put their foot down.
And I'm not arguing the fact that you need one. I'm not saying that. My point is, I'm having trouble getting my hands around why the government is the answer. Every situation that private industry can't afford to do, the government has to step up and help you. That's the problem that I have.
Yeah, I understand. I look at it this way. I mean, the state of Nebraska invests money in areas over the years to help grow jobs, to incentivize business. And this is one of these. This is where we want to retain businesses. We want to attract businesses. We want to grow these industries. And so if the state of Nebraska is in the business of doing that, then I would say bioscience is a smart investment. If the state's not doing any of it, that's a different issue. But if the state of Nebraska is allocating taxpayer dollars to grow the economies of the entire state, biosciences is a safe bet, safe investment.
I would agree if that's the charge of the state. I agree.
Other questions?
Oh,
Senator Dorn.
Thank you, Senator Clemens, and thank you for being here. I guess I'm not real familiar with what you keep calling a wet lab. Could you describe that a little bit more? I mean, is it used basically for research or for future products or what?
No, it's for research and such. I mean, essentially, you could do a 10-foot long table like this that would have a sink, you have some water, and then you would have some specialized ventilation that would be going on. So it's just not like you can plop your stuff down on any table. I mean, there are some specifics to it, which increases the cost because you need, again, that specialized ventilation because you're dealing with maybe animal cells, human cells, or such that need, special containment on that. So it's just not a workbench. There's got to be some specifics to it.
Senator Armendariz.
Thank you. Just to follow up to that. So I do understand the ventilation part of it and how expensive that is. What is the dollars and cents of it, since it is such an expensive investment for 10,000 square feet, are you thinking?
I mean, well, looking at what I've been told, it's about $500 a square foot. So if you built 10,000 square feet of wet lab space, it'd be $5 million.
So what does it mean to us as taxpayers? Why would we want to invest in that?
Because the biosciences are creating jobs that are $82,000 a year.
So
your high quality, high wage jobs on top of.
To tie back to my first, we need to have the businesses that want the space lined up, and then the economics of those businesses. How many jobs are they bringing? How much are they paying those people? What does that mean for tax revenue coming in the state if we go forward with doing it? I think that's what a lot of people on this committee would want to see, the numbers and the payback on the investment. Not
well,
that it's
I mean, to be honest, a lot of your startup bioscience companies just don't make it. I mean, it's very expensive. Sometimes you get bought out. I mean, it's not a surefire deal that you're going to have a startup company of 2 or 3 people that are going to rotate out of the med center that's going to be successful. I mean, and it's not a Nebraska thing. That's just an industry type thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. So you're saying
that's just the way it is.
Since it's a startup, it's a real high risk investment.
For sure. Okay. Yeah. But if you look at the statistics coming out of the Business Innovation Act, a lot of those companies that the money is being invested in are the biosciences and ag. And again, if I'm not mistaken, the Business Innovation Act, and it was $40 million in by the state, and the return on investment is $700 million or $800 million. So again, this goes back to my point. If the state is going to take money, taxpayer money, and invest into things to grow the economy, grow jobs, the biosciences is a good investment. That's my main takeaway. Again, it is taking advantage of the University of Nebraska Med Center and the fantastic research and world-class research there, the work that's going on down here on Nebraska Innovation Campus and in Lincoln and in Kearney. We have all that here. We just need to provide an environment that allows those companies and those individuals to grow. I mean, we have a workforce issue. We have it in every sector. And that's a big issue here in Nebraska. Finding investment is a big issue in the state for the biosciences. So if we can take care of some of these smaller things like wet lab space and such, that helps kind of check the box so we can keep companies here. I mean, one of those companies that I mentioned who had wet lab space in Lincoln that came back to Omaha, like if they wouldn't have found that space, they were leaving the state because they can't find wet lab space, and they're more of an established company.
So can I add there? So you mentioned Chicago and Boston. I would think that those could be some really good areas that you could grab this information I'm asking for to see they have 100,000 square feet of investment and how that's been a return to the state and in what way. I would imagine that data is out there for those more developed areas that have already done this.
I'm not sure if the state has invested in any money in the wet lab space there. Is that what you're trying to, if the state has invested money in?
Or how much revenue it brings to the state just having it, not even whoever invested in it. How much money does that enterprise bring to the state having that lab there?
I can certainly look into, see if there's numbers of like that and get back to you on that. But again, going back, biosciences, we have a lot of the resources here and talent here, and we need to figure out how to ways to keep those people, attract other companies here, and grow the biosciences, which again, for Bio Nebraska is a very diverse group. Again, ag, med tech, animal health.
Senator Silver.
I don't know for sure, but I mean, obviously a lot of communities across Nebraska have shovel.
Would you lean forward?
Oh, sorry.
Understand.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you very much, Chairman Clements. So there's a lot of communities across Nebraska that don't have a lot of money to invest in things, but they invest in shovel-ready pieces of ground, industrial park in Norfolk, hoping that someone comes along, and because the infrastructure is there, they'll build a building, they'll house something and create business and bring a tax base and those kind of things. Is that similar to what you're describing?
Well, this all piggybacks on the whole iHub concept, right? I mean, the iHub bill that Senator McKinney referenced that passed last year is essentially you get 2 or 3 organizations, nonprofits, academic institutions, economic development groups to get together to create this iHub. And that goes through the Department of Economic Development, where you are then designated as an iHub, which doesn't give you anything. And then you have to go through the DED then to apply for funds. It's 2 different offices at DED under 2 different bills. So the way I see this is an iHub designation that someone would put in an application for North Omaha within that 2-mile radius of the airport, who would then put an iHub or declare an iHub, and then there would be funding available for that. And so this wet lab space is just a portion of what Senator McKinney, I believe, is trying to accomplish. What I want to support is wet lab. We need wet lab space. I don't care if it's in Norfolk, Omaha, Lincoln, Grand Island. So wherever we can have access to more wet lab space, I'm all for it. I don't know exactly the details of what Senator McKinney sees for that iHub for the North Omaha aspect, other than bioscience and wet lab, but I don't know then how that falls in line with the rest of the North Omaha iHub discussions that have been going on, if that makes sense. I mean, yes, this is, I mean, you would have to build this wet lab space if that.
Well, this shovel ready means, I mean, you're preparing, you're preparing the environment for these wet labs to have people come in. So you're creating this environment that then they can come in and occupy and, and do work in.
I mean, so like the biotech connector over here on Innovation Campus, it has, again, 7,000 square feet of wet lab space. So they have their own individual wet lab space. There are offices for that. There are common benches where there would be multiple companies, but there are also those common areas where those groups can talk to each other, collaborate and such. So it's just not straight up wet lab space. I think what Senator McKinney is talking about is bringing people together. You have that kind of synergies going on to kind of grow business, see where people can help. So it's just not, I don't believe, this silo of wet lab space only. It would have to be a bigger facility where those companies are interacting with other, because they have to. I mean, they need to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there other proponents for LB 784? Welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Clements, members of the committee, my name is Jennifer Krieger, JENNIFER, CREAGER, registered lobbyist for the Greater Omaha Chamber. Here in support of Senator McKinney's bill. Thank you to him for bringing it. Our Director of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Chamber was going to be here today and couldn't be, so she sent over some thoughts that she asked me to share with you, both on the wet labs information that Mr. Owen, I think, did a good job of covering, but I might just share a couple of her thoughts. And then I wanted to make the committee aware of a program that we have been participating in with MIT. I'm representing Nebraska because I know the committee historically has supported entrepreneurship and innovation. So I wanted to make you aware of the work that we're doing there. So first, let me share her thoughts on the wet and dry laboratory space will continue to put Omaha and Nebraska on the map as it relates to our innovation growth. We're playing catch up compared to surrounding Midwest states and other parts of the country, To see companies start, scale, and grow who need access to these resources, they need to have the resources available in the first place. As a state, we lack the space, as Mr. Owen said, that helps support highly innovative startups, particularly those looking to advance and drive forward technology solutions in the biosciences, medical technology, and agri-tech-related industries. This space is critical to the growth these startups and types of companies need. Access to lab space, in particular the equipment that would be housed in the lab, is one of the largest capital expenses that startups will face. Having incubation space in the form of a wet or dry lab allows these companies to access and use specialized equipment while sharing the expense widely with other startups to try to solve similar problems. Ultimately, having access to this type of a resource will allow us to continue to grow a key part of our economy while leveraging one of our largest employers and anchor institutions in Omaha, which is UNMC. We know that this institution is one of the largest employers and patent producers, and being able to leverage that expertise into the production of new technologies and companies is key for long-term economic development and growth. It can also cultivate a community of support for startup founders working in these key industries because of the shared access to resources, programming, and more. Without these spaces, companies solving problems in these key industries that need access to this type of resource will start out of state, grow and scale out of state, and ultimately employ people out of state. We also have an opportunity with this funding appropriation to provide new opportunities to continue growing a workforce in Omaha that's eager and ready for training and can be key in solving some of the workforce needs of institutions like UNMC and companies who are wanting to advance job opportunities in bioscience, life sciences, and health industries. And as far as the program, our group representing Nebraska is participating. It's called the MIT REAP program, Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program. It's been facilitated by MIT in Boston and Omaha and Lincoln. A team from Omaha and Lincoln is participating in its 9th cohort. There are 11 different stakeholders in the core team. It's working to drive forward a strategic plan rooted in action that will support the innovation and startup ecosystems in Omaha and Lincoln. Stakeholders include representatives, and my understanding is the cohort will only be accepted into the program if they have stakeholders from the entrepreneurship community, the university community, the risk capital community, the government community, and the corporate community. And so we have representatives from all of those areas. It's based around 4 workshops, 3 of which take place in Boston and 1 that is happening this summer in Australia, where the group of volunteers will get to showcase the program, our ecosystem, startups, and more on a global scale. We're also joined by counterparts in Des Moines, St. Louis, and Kansas City, along with 4 other countries. The program is fully funded by the Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City, and it's one of the largest investments the foundation has made in the state of Nebraska to date, and will formally conclude at the end of 2023, where it continues long after the program ends. If the committee is interested in more information about that program, we'd be happy to share that with you. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Are there other proponents for LB 784? Seeing none, are there anyone here in opposition? Seeing none, anyone wishing to testify in the neutral capacity? Seeing none, Senator McKinney, you're welcome to close.
Thank you, and Thank you for those who came to testify, and thank you committee members for your questions. I just personally think that investing in innovation hubs is a good way to grow our state and, find ways to invest in things that, attract and keep people here, but also, spur some type of innovation, because I think we have to innovate our state from western to eastern Nebraska, and this is a part of the way to do that. And I just say thank you.
Question, Senator McDonald.
Thank you, Senator McKinney, for bringing this bill. And I believe the amendment that you wanted us to make sure we have was Amendment 598. And we do have it now.
Okay.
And it's clear in there that you're asking for 15 million in fiscal year 23-24 and 10 million for fiscal year 24-25. So thank you for getting that for us.
Thank you.
Other questions? I had one question. Who would own this facility? Do you have that idea?
The individuals that agree to come together to form an innovation hub would own the facility.
Okay, basically the entrepreneurs.
So the entrepreneurs, it could be the university, it could be the Economic Development Corporation, it's multiple entities that could form the partnership to create the innovation hub.
Does the state have any ownership for putting in the money? Or is there any, do you know if there's any matching funds?
No, I don't think so as of now.
All right. Well, I believe that's how we are Innovation Campus. Are you thinking of something similar to what Innovation Campus?
I think the issue though with matching funds is in areas like North Omaha, it's hard to get matching funds.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality is, although I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it makes it harder to do things like this in those type of areas.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Senator McKinney.
All right, thank you.
And regarding position comments, I guess I don't see any. So that will conclude LB 784. We'll open a hearing for LB 798. Senator Vargas.
This might be very short because I don't have testifiers for this. And I'll explain. This bill, as I was starting to write it, was meant to provide a vehicle for necessary adjustments with the East Side Economic Recovery grant funds that we currently have sitting that need to be appropriated and designated. And so we put in a number for $2 million for that. So this is sort of a shell bill, so to speak. We've been very public about what some of the transfer funds would look like. We had a press conference earlier today, community members. And as you know, what I can tell you is the East Side Recovery, the special committee of senators, again, similar to the Star Wars project, have been working on amendment language on in a bill in urban affairs and another bill that we'll be hearing, I think, on Thursday with Senator McKinney. So this was meant just so we had another vehicle, which is why I'm not asking anybody to testify. With that, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, I noticed there's one. Oh, Senator it over.
So what is this for? I mean, I listened to what you just said. I'm thinking like, is this just for nothing? Or is this for something?
It's not for nothing. It is, the intent was, this is part communication, like us doing a better job of communication, but I wanted to make sure that there was going to be a vehicle for transferring funds for the Economic Recovery Grant Program that we passed into law last year. Funds are right now sitting in a fund and they need to be passed and to what the intended purpose is. Originally, I wasn't sure if there was going to be other bills related to this, and there are. And as I mentioned, that one's going to be on Thursday. And so rather than having those people come and testify on today and Thursday, which seems redundant, we'll be talking about amendment language in Senator McKinney's bill on Thursday. This is the collective work of the special committee that Senator McDonald, Senator Wishart, myself, new member, Senator Armendariz, and other members have been a part of this. So again, I said the shell bill because it's the best example I could say. We wanted to have a bill in case we brought an amendment, but we're not going to be working directly on this specific bill. We're going to work on largely Thursday's bill.
So will you withdraw this bill or?
No, because I don't have an intent or plan to move this bill on its own.
Oh, okay.
And if you look at the bill language is really budget language, right? So just like Senator Clements had a bill that he introduced last week, I think your testimony was extremely short too. This is a shell bill. I'm the chair of the committee, and listen to that. That was basically it. So that's what this is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
And McDonald gave you a green light. He came on blue with me last week. I asked a question on the show.
I'm starting trouble.
That was nice. You have experience.
Are there any proponents?
Thank you.
Seeing none, any opponents? Seeing none, any neutral? Seeing none, that concludes the hearing for LB 798. And, you waive your closing? You waive closing? And that concludes the hearings for today. Good job.